Yes, she's got some better background. Oh, it's chilly where you are, Jimmy.
All right, we are live now on YouTube, and I will call the roll if that's okay with you.
Let me call the meeting to order for May 21st, 2025.
All right, we are live now. Sorry.
And let's, when you're ready, after fixing the audio, please call roll.
All right. Apologies. Mr. Chair, Mike Morrow.
Present.
Mr. Vice Chair, Christopher Burkholder.
Present.
Kat Pence is absent. Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Edgecombe.
Present.
Richard Field.
He said he would be here. So make sure.
All right, he'll be a little late. And Benjamin Wigton.
Present.
All right, thank you.
Okay, just barely. Like to go ahead and, assuming everyone's reviewed the agenda, let's go ahead and approve that, please. I have a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So approve the agenda. Next, let's approve the minutes from last meeting, which was it really January?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Motion to approve the minutes, or if there are any amendments, we'll talk about that.
Motion. Second.
All right, all in favor? All opposed? Okay. Next, it talks about in the beginning any announcements, so I guess let's double check. Are there any front-loaded announcements? Okay. Any public comment that just come in?
Didn't receive any.
Okay.
It's technically, well, Ron spoke. Rest of us are supposed to. Ron, yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the reports, please.
Oh, it's my turn. So Rob wasn't able to attend tonight. His daughter's a senior in high school doing her last track meet, I guess. So he asked me to do his report for him. April 2025 traffic count 4,125 operations. Busiest day was 228 operations. There's right.
Sorry.
I don't want to be at the end.
Yeah, that's right.
No. Year to date, January through April 2025, 12,704 operations. Mandatory occurrence reports. January 8th, there was an alert one for one of our locally based TBM9s. Reported 3 in the green for landing gear, although we had an unsafe gear indication light. Fire department responded, aircraft landed without incident. And then on May 14th, this is a new one, we had a pilot that reported a malfunctioning attitude indicator. But said the magic word, so ARP responded and aircraft landed without incident. So yeah, that's a new one. And then as far as alert 2 is actual aircraft emergencies, February 26th, we had an aircraft with a right engine failure. Fire department responded, aircraft landed without incident. And we had 2 pilot deviations, same aircraft, 2 deviations back to back. March 24th, aircraft crossed runway 13 without ATC authorization and landed runway 34 without ATC clearance. So they've been reported to FSDO. And then just this morning, we had our annual runway safety action team annual meeting. Some of you may have been attending that. It's an annual requirement we have primarily with the FAA, with local businesses, people that operate on the aircraft, to talk about runway safety, do's and don'ts, any issues that have come up since last year, and that kind of thing. So it was a 45-minute meeting. Everything's good to go here in Salem. FAA's happy. FSDO typically every year. FSDO is a flight standards district office, or FAA flight standards district office, appreciates that we are not on their radar screen or anything. They like coming down to Salem because the meetings are quick and there's no, it speaks to the relationship we have with our air traffic control tower, with our fire department, with our local FBO, and the other businesses and operators here on the airport. So that was a good meeting this morning. FAA is happy, and the federal regulatory agencies are happy. I'm happy. That is it for the towers report. Any questions for Rob or anything I can take back to him?
Okay. Manager's report, please.
Submitted a three-page report with the packet. Assume that you've all had an opportunity to read it. I don't know that I have anything else to add. I was gonna add this morning's runway safety action team. We included that in the tower manager's report, so I don't have anything in addition to what I have in the management report. I did touch on the PFAS investigation in here, and you may have seen just the last couple of days it's come out in the news. So Jason and some of the other folks helped us do the public outreach just to let people know that we'd be doing some investigation. So we are aware there's a little bit that's been found on the airport. So we've engaged the services of an environmental services company that's going to do some soil testing out here and some of the what we think will be the key locations where the fire department used to train with foam and where we've had a couple of aircraft accidents that have been foamed out. So that'll be starting here this year and see what the extent and magnitude is. I recall that the Guard, or at least the military department, did some PFAS testing years ago over on your site and a little bit on our side of the fence.
Well, I don't know if we did PFAS. It may have incorporated that. It was mostly when our fuel truck
There was
spilled,
that
yeah,
one,
had
right.
the valve blew up on us.
Right.
We dumped 1,000 gallons.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a different incident.
Okay. They're over there all the time. It wouldn't surprise me if we have some good reports on it. And, you know, they've been doing aircraft maintenance and stuff there since the 40s. So I am concerned when they tear those down and build new hangars of what's down there for decades.
Other than that, I don't have anything
I
else.
have a few questions.
Just ask some questions.
Yes, I do have a few questions. I'm curious, you mentioned a bit about the revenue guarantee. It looks like with adding back in the service, the second service, and the last 2 months have bumped up in load factor.
Sure.
Are we in that, if you look at just the last, like most recent month, or maybe 2 months when we're in the 70s and 80%, are we above the threshold where we would still have to do revenue guarantees?
For March and April combined, it was like $11,000 ask, so it was very slim. I think March, yeah, because of the spring break was like $1,000 and it was like
Okay.
10,000 in April. So, but May on, last year was a May, June, July, there were no asks. It was all in the green. And then towards the end of the summer travel season in August, September, there were some more asks. So those are the last 2 months of the program.
Right.
Okay. So our presumption is that they won't use all that. We'll be able to return some of the money and then save some of the local match money for the next round if and when we get another grant. So that's our hope. I'd be surprised if an airline left any money on the table, but so far, we're also hopeful that they'll realize that they're gonna leave money on the table and add another route. So
But that would be qualifier.
it depends if it goes to the right location, the
Oh, I
right
see.
destination. There are 4 destinations in the
Oh.
grant that they can't go to, including Phoenix and the Bay Area. So
Those are qualified.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Reading in there, you talked about the city potentially asking for terminal improvement funds in the 2025 legislative session, which we only would have one more of these before that's done. Would it be beneficial to have a letter from the AAC in support of that if the city is going to proceed with that ask?
that's not a question I can answer. I don't interact with the legislature and I don't know we have somebody in the city manager's office that manages.
Yeah, I don't know that the airport made it up the list for the legislative asks.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Okay.
know that there are others above it, I believe. I would have to look and see. We could get back to you on that.
I guess the only thing is, if there would be a benefit and an ask for a letter, we just want to have that crafted so we can vote on it at the next meeting, which would be the only meeting.
You're talking about a bill going forward?
They're asking about whether we requested funding from the state, as a legislative ask for terminal.
Or, the terminal, work. It was,
Go with our federal funding.
it was
I would say I'm
federal.
not sure if it made it all the way up.
Yeah, I don't think it is on the, it wasn't on our watch list. Mayor Hoy is in the legislative committee. I've been looking at them because I am alternate, and so I've been reviewing them. And I don't think there was any ask from us, because of other asks. And the only bill that I remember that's at the state level is about, drones.
Okay.
That's the only one that we've seen and that we support it. We support the control of it. that is at the state level. So that's the only thing that I'm remembering in the sense of legislative committee gets a list and city staff recommend whether support, oppose, or be neutral. And then the legislative committee reviews it. But the only thing that I have seen on that's moving forward is the drones.
Does that then impact terminal expansion?
No, it doesn't impact it. It's just more money is better.
Right.
So we're always asking for various resources. For instance, when we started commercial air services the year before we started, we had about $500,000 grant from the legislature to buy all the ground handling equipment. So, we'll go back to that trough as often as we can and see if there's any additional money.
Well, and I didn't know if that was something that would help with the federal side of things. So sometimes I like to see that
Always helps. Yeah.
communities have
Yeah.
skin in the game.
The more money that we can match federal grants, the better.
On the federal side, if I can jump in, are you hearing anything from the FAA on reduction in everything? Because we've got a couple FAA employees who are doom and gloom, and like 25% of their manning is going to be cut over the next year.
We haven't seen any of that. And I asked the FAA this morning, they're not DOGE eligible because they're flight safety. So on the TSA side and the FAA side, we haven't seen any cuts. Haven't gotten any word or seen any indication that any of the funding would be cut. What we do have, and I just got it here this afternoon about 4 o'clock, is the 2025 grant application and grant award documents have changed, and there are some new requirements in there now based on executive orders for things like DEI programs and helping the federal government with immigration enforcement and those sorts of things that are at odds with state law as a sanctuary state, to some extent, maybe even the city. So I just got the new templates this afternoon. I need to send those to legal for their review before we can even apply for and accept grants, because we may be obligating the city to things that are in conflict. So that piece we're gonna have to try and unwind, and hopefully it won't slow down the funding of the projects, but
Hopefully somebody is smart enough, has some creative wording.
right, or there's an injunction, or there's something, something that keeps the money rolling. Because we do have projects that we want to get started this summer, design projects for construction next summer, including some federal discretionary money. And once you lose that, you're going to go right back to the bottom of the list, and we really can't afford to lose that. So
But nothing you're seeing like for relocating the tower or anything.
none of that, no, that's all still happening. Yep, they're still in the environmental study phase over there for the new tower. So still subject to change. The new administration, the federal government's upside down right now. But a lot of folks that we work with up at the Seattle regional office have either moved on or are moving on. And so a lot of our environmental submittals and things are just gone into a black hole. And they've got planners doing environmental work now. And it's pretty messy. So we're hoping that it'll smooth itself out at some point and kind of get back to normal, or at least the new normal. But at this point, we don't really know what new normal even means. But again, no funding decreases that we know of yet. In my experience in past, and it's been going back decades now, is that aviation and airport infrastructure projects and things typically don't get cut for obvious reasons. So that's my optimistic side.
Yeah, great.
So,
I just looked up the House Bill 3426 about the drones. Are you all aware of that already? I don't want to bore you with details, except that it says, House Bill 3426 expands existing offenses related to the use of unmanned aircraft systems. In summary, this bill strengthens protections for emergency response efforts by preventing drone-related disruptions that could endanger lives and compromise critical operations, and enhances safety for firefighting and search and rescue.
And it's moving forward. We're in support of it, and isn't it?
It's been referred to the speaker's desk.
Yes.
So, wait, I'm sorry, they go backwards. It's in work session scheduled for the 19th, so that's.
Oh, it's already, yes, so it is.
super. Thank you, Mayor.
You had mentioned we were gonna hear back, or you'd asked for clarification on the runway designation, like the legacy crossway.
Legacy Crossway.
Any word back yet?
No word back yet. No. And they were not on our call on Monday. Keep pestering them, but again, it's the same people now that are
Right.
doing multiple jobs. Again, my optimistic side, I'm in the 95+% confidence that we meet all the criteria for a legacy crosswind runway. Once we get that writing from the FAA, then we'll be good to go. We are moving forward in master plan as though that runway is going to stay in place, with or without the federal funding. It's been made abundantly clear that it's an important piece of infrastructure. So we can keep moving with our master plan efforts so that we can wrap that up by the time the grant expires next summer.
Great, which brings up one last thing, from my perspective. Master planning session is the next one, been ballpark, when it's going to be.
We're looking at the week of July 14th. So we'll be sending out we kind of fly to see if everybody's available, save the date of some 2 or 3 day span during that week, trying to get away from all the holidays that are coming up and vacation and things. So it's a little bit tricky, but then we have some internal reviews. So some of the chapters, like for instance, chapter 1 that the committee reviewed now 2.5 years ago, a lot of that's changed because so much has changed here in the airport. We have commercial service, we bought additional property, we've swapped out the Mauser. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure changes. So chapter 1 is going to have to be updated and re-reviewed. So, and then of course the airport moved under public works. And so my boss and my boss's boss haven't read any of the chapters yet. So I sent those off this afternoon and thought maybe if they want to get caught up and see if there's any edits or anything that while we're gonna have to go back and redo some of the work, this would be a good time for everybody to review it. So we need to give ourselves a little bit of window of time to get caught up and then get back on track, hopefully in July with the rest of the plan. We're probably about halfway there. So I think once we can get over this runway thing and get caught up to where we are, we should be moving along pretty quick order.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
I got one more on the noise complaint one, I guess it's back part of the tower report, but what's the difference between new and repeat? Does that mean the same person is calling or?
Yes.
Okay, so
Same
they actually
address.
identify themselves and
Yeah.
they do that
Yeah.
stuff. And then the follow on to that is there's a one repeat low flying. There's looks like on the same day, there's a Bell and a Blackhawk, they say, and they gave some very specific numbers. So are they sitting on an ADS-B or, FlightAware and like looking, or
It wouldn't surprise
do
me.
you know if they're
I don't know.
near? Because we don't fly that low unless we're landing. We only land here at the airport, so I'm suspect of that number.
Yeah, anymore, there are people that have technology out there that are,
Yeah.
flight radar or flight tracker or
Yeah.
ADS-B receivers.
Or it's the special forces guys out of Fort Lewis. I mean, since they're the mayor here, ma'am, if you ever hear a lot of complaints, it's usually aircraft out of Fort Lewis that are bored up there, or they've been run out of town, so they come down to here. They have a real problem out by Astoria. They're buzzing houses and 2 o'clock in the morning with aircraft.
And they're typically late at night.
Yeah, and then we get the phone call of angry people. It's like, no, we live here too. We don't go buzz our houses at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it's the Night Stalker, so it's the nighttime and the people that went in, and all sort of stuff. So there's a SOAR group up at Fort Lewis, and they will come down here and train at the prison grounds. They do, whatever training.
No,
they
nice
do,
low
they go
altitude.
around here, and they typically fly about 500 feet super fast in the middle of the night. Haven't had them down here for a while, and maybe about 75% of the time they'll call me and give me a courtesy notice so that I always know how to respond, but they do occasionally operate without letting anybody know, and then we get noise complaints.
Do they actually-
It's blamed on the guard.
Usually transponders, so they show up and these people that are using the apps or.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point I should bring up. So recently, due to that horrible crash in DC a few months ago, the Army and DoD mandated use of ADS-B in airspace. So every military aircraft should have it on, and
Even the special operations guys.
they might have a special exemption, that is true. That could be the case
Okay.
of that.
That's good to know.
Somebody complained in January that they weren't showing up with flight radar. It was one of the repeats. Low flying aircraft not showing up flight radar.
Yeah.
I don't think
Not everybody does show up.
So, but if he is just sitting there with the non.
Yeah, so a lot of that is just, we educate people, and not everybody's gonna show up on your flight radar.
And that, the most recent one with the low flying jets, I mean, Facebook blew up with all, and it's like.
Yeah.
It was a celebration.
Yeah,
or-
the Armed Forces
Yeah,
Day.
the Armed Forces Day, it's like.
We got blasted from.
That was May 14th or something.
Yeah, just.
I heard explosions at the Capitol and these airplanes went all really low. So, yeah, that was part of the event. People figured out eventually. Any other questions or comments on the reports?
I had one quick question, the excerpt you included, at the end, it talked about certain runway requirements for airports co-located with USAF or ANG facilities.
Mhm.
Does that apply at all here? At all?
No.
So the helicopters, I mean, is that what it is?
Yeah, because the airport's the city of Salem's, the guards on their own
Gotcha.
site, but they use our, our infrastructure too, so it's not a joint use space or.
Okay. I think the last agenda item was chair's report. I didn't really have a report, other than just, I think everybody did a good job, but, reminder to read the materials. So that we can have our questions ready. And I guess the other thing I would mention is, if we have any prospects for a Ward 2 candidate, I've sent a few people up into the bureaucratic aspect, and whether they decided to fill out the paperwork, I don't know. But any prospects of anybody you've heard of, anybody have friends that live in this area or family? Just a reminder, we need a Ward 2 representative.
Can you tell me what the requirements are? I don't
Be a
know.
resident of Ward 2.
And that's it? They don't need to know anything about
We're
it?
a standing seat from Ward 2.
Okay,
And so can they.
Representing the Ward 2.
so just representing the ward, but they're not a voting member? Oh,
Yeah,
they are. Oh, okay.
They're-
I'll still get the word out.
please do,
I will.
the community meetings
There
and
might
all
be
that.
somebody that goes, yeah, that'd be cool.
And you're familiar with the commitment, it's
I
not,
am,
it's not terrible as far as this kind of meetings
Every
go.
other month, it's not that. And you're a nice group.
Yeah, maybe not anybody with an ADSB receiver. Anti-early people.
Actually, those are the ones we do on here.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, give them a voice.
Okay, anything else? Any action items,
So actually,
items for commission discussion?
that's the 5 of you.
Okay.
I have a question, but just, it's a quick one, you may not have the answer, and that is this thing that, with the chemical thing that they're gonna be chasing, what are they gonna do with it? I'm curious, I
I
mean,
don't know, it's interesting.
it's a
because-
bad thing, I know, but.
Yeah, the federal government's identified it as a carcinogen, but the Department of Environmental Quality doesn't have any rules yet. They're developing rules for cleanup and mitigation and all that, so we're working with them as we go along to let them know what we're doing. And then hopefully there'll be some guidance on,
So the idea is to find out if you have it first, and then they
if
decide.
you
what
have
to
it,
do
what the
with it.
magnitude is, and then do you dig it up and replace it with clean soil and let it air out, or do can you cap it? I don't know enough about PFAS. Mark's got the environmental services folks in his group, so.
With solids, which is what this would be, you probably just remove it and transport it to a sanitary landfill, like out in Eastern Oregon or something, but if it's in liquids, there is treatments for it, so, but we like John says, we're still waiting to find out.
Yeah.
What are we dealing with first?
Salem ahead of the game, we forging the trail and.
John, you said other airports are kind of along with this here.
Yeah, it's been coming for a while now, and airports have been known because of the firefighting foam that was used for decades. It's mandated by the FAA, so we're known, a site for that kind of thing. But because there hasn't been any guidance or any rulemaking yet, airports really haven't done much because we don't really, nobody wants to waste the time or the money to do something wrong until we're told what it is we have to do. So we're a little bit ahead of it, I think. But if we're not forging the trail, but we're a little bit ahead of it because we did find some from a hangar developer on the south end. They spotted some in their lot, and so once we knew, we wanted to be proactive and see where else we may have some of what the magnitude of it is, and particularly where we want to develop hangars because there's revenue.
Does that hold up the new development?
It could. That's some of the reason we need to start testing now. So we're not waiting. If we're waiting for federal or state rulemaking, we could be waiting a while.
Yeah, if you can find it clean, you're good, but if you can't, then you gotta deal with it,
Yep.
it's like gasoline,
So that's the goal. So we're trying to be out as far in front of it as we can.
John, if I could add a comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the consultant that we hired has actually been working up that PDX for quite a few years, so
Oh, okay.
they jumped out ahead of the game and they've been working on it up
They're
there.
blazing the trail.
So, yeah, so they're kind of blazing the trail. The other thing we've heard is when when this first started coming out about worries about and concerns with drinking water, there's a lot of small communities across the country that have groundwater wells for potable, municipal supplies that are close to airports. And so there is a lot of contamination across the country to water systems because of it actually leaching through and getting into the groundwater. Fortunately, we get our groundwater, we get our drinking water up the canyon and Sandium River, so we don't have that concern here. But it is happening across the country.
And our water's been tested, you said, right?
Yeah, our drinking water's been tested, it's clean, there's no hits at all from these chemicals, so that's good for us. So really it's, how do we make sure it's not getting into the groundwater here and then into the surface waters of creeks and streams and other places? And what do we do with it if we find it? And like, what Mark has shared, that's probably the scenario where there are certain landfills that are designated to accept the stuff that you just have to haul the soil there to do it. So, but it is new for us. We've been testing our drinking water since 2023, and we started also testing our wastewater at our wastewater treatment plant back then. And it is present in the wastewater. We know that we're monitoring it, waiting for standards to come out. But there are ways to deal with it because the science related to drinking water, especially, it's really critical that it get addressed because that's affecting people every day. And so there's technologies that are coming out. We've met recently with one of the landfills, and they've shared technologies they're actually looking at for wastewater as well. So the science is catching up with it, and hopefully there'll be good solutions long term for it. So.
Yeah, to give you an idea of how difficult it is to test for this, most of the chemicals that we test for in our different, fluids that we test, we're looking at parts per million, even parts per billion. PFAS is detected at parts per trillion.
Oh,
So, you could say, I think one of our staff people said it's the equivalent of like a little drop of water in an Olympic sized swimming pool. That's what you're testing for. So it's expensive, and you only want to do as much as you need to because it's pretty expensive.
And as I've come to learn, it's apparently on a lot of things that we all wear and cook with and everything else.
Yeah, it's not, it's teaching into people, but they've done some studies too. I'm a little bit familiar with it, and like they did a sample of men, one of the parts of their body, and like every single person had it in them. Like 100 people they tested, every single guy had it. So
Super.
yeah.
wonderful. That's what we all need.
Well, who puts the bill for it? We do.
No, right now, because we're concerned with groundwater and potential surface water runoff, our environmental services group is covering the bill. So until we get a handle on where it is, what it's affecting, we feel like that's the right way to do it. So when I say that, it's our utility fund that, oversees water.
Stormwater protection.
But it's city or state level agencies?
City. But what the hope is that where it is on the airport is not getting into, or it doesn't run into the wastewater
With stormwater.
with stormwater thing.
The new wrinkle on the fabric.
Yeah. I remember the gasoline thing from when I was a kid and all the stuff that went through that. Of course, I was running shops my whole life, so this looks like it's gonna go in the same way. Only gasoline goes through the ground a lot quicker, so takes time.
If you can get to it before it gets to the groundwater, it's a lot easier to deal with.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments for the commission? Okay, with that then I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.